You are not going to tell anyone about the Tuesday evening you changed everything. Because it did not feel like anything. You get home from work. You open a brokerage account on your phone. You set up an automatic transfer for $300. You eat dinner. You watch something you will not remember by the weekend. You go to bed. Nothing about that night announces itself as the beginning of $1 million. The 300 was not a calculated number. It was not the output of a spreadsheet. It was the number you decided you would not physically feel missing by the 15th of the month. That was the entire methodology. Find the number that disappears quietly. Point it somewhere it cannot be easily retrieved. Go to bed. Year 1, you open the app for the first time in 3 months. The balance is $4,000. $4,000 does not feel like a strategy. It feels like the amount a single bad month could erase twice over. It feels like money you have locked in a drawer for reasons that are getting harder to remember clearly. You do not touch it. Not because you are disciplined in the way that gets written about. Not because you have a morning routine and a vision board and a journal full of financial intentions. You do not touch it because the architecture you built will not allow you to touch it conveniently. The transfer leaves 4 days after payday. You never see the full balance in your checking account. You never get to decide whether this month is a good month to invest. That decision was made 11 days ago by the version of you that was thinking clearly. Present-day you was not invited to the meeting. You built it that way on purpose. You knew your worst days were coming. They always come. The year the car breaks down and the dentist finds something expensive in the same 30-day window. You open the investment account. You look at the balance. You think about pausing the transfer for 90 days. You do the mental accounting where pausing feels responsible and temporary and entirely reasonable. You close the app. You cover both bills from the checking account. You eat plainly for 6 weeks. The transfer runs on the first of the following month, exactly as it always has. This is the part of financial discipline nobody photographs. Not the dramatic resistance, the quiet continuation. The month where nothing heroic happened and the system ran anyway. Now let me tell you about the car. You drive it for 11 years. Not as a statement, not as an identity, because it starts when you turn the key and it gets you to the places you need to be. By year 7, it has developed a rattle on the highway. You learn to filter it the way you filter out a clock ticking in a quiet room. People ask when you are getting a new one. You say you are not in a hurry. What you do not say is this. The average car payment right now is over $700 a month. You know what $700 a month compounding for 11 years produces? It produces something close to $170,000. Your car has a rattle. You have $170,000 sitting in a fund you check 4 times a year. You have decided that is a reasonable trade. You do not say this at dinner. Nobody wants the index fund conversation at dinner. You smile and say you like your car. The subscription audit happens every January. 1 hour. Bank statement open on the kitchen table. Every recurring charge examined with one question. Not whether you can afford it, whether you have used it in the last 60 days. If the answer is no, the subscription ends. Every cancellation has a retention screen and a discounted offer and a guilt mechanism designed by someone whose job was specifically to stop you from leaving. You click through every single one without reading the offers. You are not canceling because you are struggling. You are canceling because $60 a month you are not using, invested over 20 years, is $45,000. You are not ending a streaming subscription. You are choosing $45,000 instead. That reframe changes everything about small financial decisions. It removes the feeling of sacrifice entirely. You are not giving something up. You are making an arithmetic choice between 2 things with 2 very different outcomes. The outcome that involves $45,000 wins, every time, without requiring any willpower at all. The meals. You cook most nights. Not every night, most nights. The gap between most and all is a Friday dinner and a Saturday lunch that actually means something because they are not the default. The gap between most and none is $500 a month. $500 a month over 25 years at historical market returns. You can run that number yourself. It lands differently when you do it in your own calculator. Now let me take you to the afternoon you almost stopped believing. You are 34 years old. The transfer has been running for 8 years. You open the app on a Wednesday after work. The balance is just under $90,000. $90,000. After 8 years. After the rattling car. After the January audits. After the plainly eaten weeks when the bills came in wrong months. After every Friday you cooked instead of ordered. $90,000 does not feel like the number those years should have produced. It sits on the screen looking ordinary. A colleague has just finished a kitchen renovation. Another took a trip last month that is still generating stories at every lunch. You have $90,000 in an account you have not opened since October. You sit with that feeling for several days. You do not change anything. Not because you are resolute, because you understand something about compound interest that you have known intellectually for years, but are only now beginning to feel in your chest. The curve is not linear. The first decade is the slow part, the part that produces numbers that feel disconnected from the consistency it took to build them. The part where the account balance does not feel like the life you are quietly constructing. The second decade is where the curve bends. $90,000 at year 8 becomes $240,000 at year 13. $240,000 becomes $580,000 at year 18. $580,000 becomes just over $1 million at year 22. You did not receive an inheritance. You did not time the market correctly. You did not find the right stock or the right opportunity or the right moment. You just did not stop. Half of Americans close to retirement have saved less than $72,000. You know what produces that number. It is not recklessness. It is not irresponsibility. It is the lifetime of meaning to start. The years of this not being quite the right moment. The transfers that never got set up because something always needed the money first. The architecture that never got built. So the money kept flowing out instead of compounding in. The raise is where most people lose the game without knowing it. You get a meaningful raise at 31. The standard response is that life gets more expensive. Better apartment, better car, better versions of everything that was the acceptable version before. This happens so naturally it barely registers as a decision. Lifestyle inflation does not ask permission. It simply expands to fill whatever income becomes available. You do not upgrade anything. You raise the automated transfer instead. The raise goes to the wall before lifestyle can absorb it. Same mechanism that ran on that forgettable Tuesday evening at 26. Same wall. This time it grows taller. That single decision, intercepting the raise before it became a lifestyle, produces more long-term wealth than any other move you make. Because the most dangerous financial moment is not the emergency. The emergency you can feel. The emergency has a number and a deadline and an urgency that demands response. The most dangerous financial moment is the quiet expansion. The month your income goes up and your spending rises to meet it naturally, and nothing about that month feels like a mistake, because it does not feel like anything. It just feels like living slightly better. The compounding curve does not care how it feels. It runs the numbers regardless. This is what the years look like from inside them. No drama, no visible progress for longer than feels fair, no audience, no moment where the strategy suddenly feels correct, a transfer amount that increases quietly every time income grows, a car with a rattle you stopped hearing somewhere around year 4, an hour in January with a bank statement and a willingness to click through retention screens, dinners cooked on weeknights, a checking account that is always slightly lower than you expect because the wall got there first. And somewhere in year 12, the feeling shifts, not to excitement, to something quieter than excitement, the feeling of knowing the math is running in your favor, not loudly, not visibly, just running, every day, whether you are watching or not, whether you feel motivated or not, whether the market is up or down. The architecture does not have feelings. You built it that way. That was always the point. If you want to understand the next structural move, the one that runs parallel to this and accelerates the compounding further, stay close. Most people learn it too late. You still have time to run it from the beginning. Let me stay on that Wednesday afternoon for one more moment, because that afternoon is where most people make the mistake that costs them everything. You are 34 years old. $90,000 on a screen. 8 years of consistency producing a number that feels disconnected from the effort. The mistake is not withdrawing the money. Most people do not do something that obvious. The mistake is pausing. Not dramatically, just quietly deciding that the strategy needs to be rethought. That maybe the money would work harder somewhere else. That maybe the approach should be reviewed before the next contribution goes in. The pause feels like prudence. It is not prudence. It is the moment the present bias finally wins. Because pausing breaks the architecture. And once the architecture is broken, the rebuild requires a decision. And decisions require motivation. And motivation is unreliable. And 3 months becomes 6 months, becomes a year, becomes the lifetime of good intentions that produces $72,000 at 64 instead of the number you were actually on track for. You do not pause. You close the app. You make dinner. The transfer runs on the first. That is the discipline. Not the daily white-knuckling. Not the performance of frugality. The refusal to interrupt something that is working, even when it does not feel like it is working yet. The back half of the compound interest curve is earned entirely in the front half. In the years where the number is too small to feel real. In the Wednesdays where your colleague's kitchen renovation is fresh in the conversation and your account balance is sitting quietly, doing nothing visible. Every one of those Wednesdays you keep the architecture running is a Wednesday that earns the back half. The million is not built in year 22. It is built in the years that felt like nothing. You are in those years right now, or you are about to enter them. So check your architecture. If the transfer isn't automated, set it up today. If it is, leave it alone. Close the app and go make dinner. Building wealth is a quiet discipline. If you want this kind of quiet consistency in your feed, subscribe to the channel. And if you're letting the transfer run on the first, leave a like so this reaches whoever needs to hear it today.